busting. And that literally the profits from these companies go to bring in the one world government. And it is, which again gives them even more power through governmental control. So just the evidence we gleaned last night and a few hours today is more than we could cover in hours and hours. But Aaron Dykes, you have the floor, my friend. Go over the research you and I have done.
That's right. Not only did IBM basically give Microsoft the breakthrough contract after digital research failed, they gave them the breakthrough contract. DOS became the big operating system, and Microsoft was launched as this big thing, really just an IBM front, more or less. And then skipping forward, we know that Bill Gates has donated these billions and billions and billions for population control in Africa, and that's pretty out in the open, but it's seen as a good thing. But if you just look slightly beyond the surface, we're just wiping out the third world. It's absolutely an abomination. And we got things here like WorldNet Daily being critical of Buffett giving towards Planned Parenthood. I mean, we're talking about Bill Gates not only donates to Planned Parenthood, but his father is on the board. He's been part of Planned Parenthood for years and years and years. I mean, that's not donating.
And his father has a spook pedigree.
Yeah, he changed his name, dropped the third so he didn't appear elite in the war, so he could appear to be somewhat normal, and then later changed from the second to junior, and then later to senior. He's been constantly adjusting his name.
There's so many facets to this. Just go over some of his quotes and some of the things he said and done.
Well, I have an interview with Bill Moyers from 2003, where Bill Gates is discussing all his philanthropy and how much he's helping Africa. And Moyers kind of brings up the idea of, where did you get inspired? And Bill Gates' response is, when I was growing up, my parents were almost involved in various volunteer things. My dad was, quote, head of Planned Parenthood. It was very controversial to be involved with that, and it's so fascinating. He was
and he's so obsessed with this, we've now learned, he is financing and owns the biggest gay magazines in the country, Outplanet, and then all its subsidiaries, just so people don't have children. He's now financing that. I mean, it's just cold-blooded, man. I mean, just because he doesn't want people. I mean, continue.
This is eugenics. Planned Parenthood's one branch of it. Population control, the things you're talking about, they are eugenicists. Bill Gates...
Margaret Sanger called black people weeds and said, don't let them know that we want to kill them.
Planned Parenthood. Bill Gates' father, head of Planned Parenthood, first locally in Washington, as you said, now a national chairman. It's absurd. And Bill Gates admits in the same interview he was an admirer, quote, of Malthus. He admired these Malthusian
Who is the
views.
great-granddaddy. He is the fount of it all, 1790.
Yeah, I'd like to read this quote, actually. And maybe the interesting thing I've learned is this thing that's still surprising when I tell other people, which is that as you improve health in society, population growth goes down. I thought it was, before I learned about it, I thought it was paradoxical. I thought, well, if you improve health, aren't you just dooming people to deal with such a lack of resources, where they won't be educated or won't have enough food? Sort of a Malthusian view of what would take place. He admits he was enthralled with Malthus.
But he's actually lying. They're keeping them from developing, and that's what their foundation does. And it's actually, once you develop, then you start having 2.2 children globally on average, and then things clean up. It's the opposite. They're keeping them in squalor, where they run around chewing up everything.
They'd rather just pursue eugenics, I think. I think it's pretty clear. They'd rather just
we've also got Gates quotes about, well, we gave everybody the shots and there was huge outbreaks, but that's just an accident. I mean, it's just, there's so much.
He and his billions just pop up in every African country, and there's always a scandal, and it's just coincidence, and it's all philanthropy.
I mean, it's no big deal that in some African countries 45% of the population have AIDS. And then they've done studies where children who have never had sex and whose mothers don't have it and fathers don't have it, but all they ever got was a shot. All they ever got was a shot. And then also they've done studies in the U.S. and England, as well as Canada, with blacks. and they found that someone who has the same amount of partners is 15 times as likely to contract HIV. Well, it's because it's a bioweapon. It's race-specific. It's been looked at. And the media, some major magazine, what is it, New Scientist, just attacked me and said, oh, we believe that AIDS was created. We have the Pentagon documents from the 70s.
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence. I mean, we have the documents.
And I pulled up a story the other day in Nigeria. When the people started catching on and started protesting being sterilized and vaccinated with polio vaccines, all of a sudden a polio outbreak starts to happen. And
that was in the BBC. They refused to take it because it had cancer virus in it. They were caught in 100+ countries. Mainly it was Africa, Latin America, and Asia. This was in the I forgot to add that in the film. We got to go back and now it's too much. About how they caught them adding the sterilization hormone to the tetanus shot.
Every time. It's just so happens to be. Even that particular news report admitted it was all staged and looked to be arranged. And
BBC.
Mm-hmm.
BBC just said it's staged. Yeah, I saw that. I mean, these people are cold-blooded, man. I mean, they need to be arrested right now.
If you somehow don't care about the third world, maybe we want to talk about China, where Bill Gates donates other billions of billions into the United Nations Population Fund, which then goes on to fund IBM computer programs that control populations, as they planned in
IBM's behind the chips, they're behind the smart cards, they're behind the genome, and sure enough, they're behind eugenics operations in China donating the computers.
Yep, just as the 1928 Jamaican race study plan that IBM funded and used their first early computers to process, just as IBM used their computers to process concentration camps, select out victims, see who would be healthy enough, see who needed to be exterminated right away. IBM also runs the population program that monitors China's plans to, enforce a one-child policy, and, well, you get the picture, I think.
We're in a lot of trouble. We're in deep trouble. Folks, I'm more freaked out than I was even before because they literally run the entire infrastructure. We randomly check high-level officials, and they always are eugenicists. I mean, it is, and you'll find in their charitable giving. It could be a Secretary of State. It could be Hillary Clinton. It could be anybody. I'm talking 95% of the time. This is their religion. And it's their rationale to kill people. It's their rationale to do whatever evil they want. And they are just literally, IBM keeps showing up as the literal fulcrum. I mean, I've been saying this for 4 or 5 years, IBM, or longer. But now, I mean, it's just, in my hypothesis, Aaron, data doesn't disprove it. It just keeps adding to it worse than I thought. And I mean, they're arrogant, folks. People say, well, why don't they kill you? Well, I mean, they might on this subject. We've actually been getting some threats, and a lot of stuff's been happening lately. They're really upset right now. And I'm not going to shut up, and I can't stop. And so that's just the end of it. And I noticed you got here bright and early this morning. I'm just guessing. I bet this has really energized you, Aaron. When you find out, man, hardcore killers are in control. And I mean, they're not playing games.
Yeah, I just keep reading. In fact, I was reading a chapter from Bertrand Russell last night.
Read it. Show people the book on TV.
And this is the impact of science on society. If you heard the quote last week about how
we're a bunch of sheep that can't resist. And
as selective breeding goes on, it'll be impossible to revolt because we'll basically be sheep. And that comes from an entire lecture he gave on the scientific technique in an oligarchy. And I don't have time to read it. I wish I could read literally every sentence, but basically it's a continuation of what Huxley was talking about.
We'll just show folks the chapter head. The chapter head says that. Just show it to them because they'll say it doesn't exist and everything else. You understand, folks, this is all they do. Everything they're building is so they can do this to you. Okay, they want to kill us. By the way, folks, a lot of white people say, okay, well, let's kill the brown people. Folks, they want to kill you too. Or they want to keep a few of us around. And by the way, eugenics, they brag, is only on the front do they want to increase everybody. That's not true. They want to dumb everybody else down. They want to kill blacks, kill most of the Asians except for the Japanese. They're going to deal with them where they get to live. I mean, this is sick. The Japanese